Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Joint Town Council Parking Authority meeting of May 5th, 2014. At this time, I would like to advise those in attendance to please silence your cell phones or your other communication devices. And would you please call the roll?
Thank you and good evening. Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Przinsky.
Here.
Vice Mayor Marcia Jensen.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Steve Leonardis.
Here. Leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening is Fiona Herron. And I'm going to invite Fiona up here, and I will say a few words about Fiona. Fiona is a fourth grader at Van Meter Elementary. She enjoys school and all subjects, but her favorite subject is math. She performed in Van Meter's school play at the end of March, where she played the role of a spy. She is in the Y Indian Guides, which is the Indian Princesses, and the Girl Scouts. She plays competitive soccer with the Los Gatos United Soccer League. She plays the position of striker, which is center forward. She used to also be on my soccer team. I was actually her first soccer coach. Fiona likes to swim and competes with the Los Gatos Swim and Racket Club swim team in the summertime. Fiona loves sports, enjoys climbing, basketball, biking, skiing, and running. Fiona did Girls on the Run, and Girls on the Run ends with a 5K run in May. Fiona is the younger sister of Laura, who was our pledge leader in March, and Laura performed the Irish dance when the Irish delegation visited us, which was a wonderful, wonderful evening in our chambers. Fiona's family lives in Ireland, and she loves to visit Ireland. So let's give a big round of applause for Fiona. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Applause for Fiona Herron. I'd like to ask Matt Morley to come forward. Matt is our Public Works Director, and this is National Public Works Month. And the Public Works team in Los Gatos does a lot of heavy lifting, keeping our parks beautiful, keeping our drains clear on those rainy days, keeping all of our signs in place and visible and readable, among things. They do a lot more than that for us. I'm going to be reading a proclamation and presenting this to Mr. Matt Morley. Whereas National Public Works Week was instituted as a public education campaign by the American Public Works Association in 1960 and calls attention to the importance of public works in community life, and whereas public works services provided in Los Gatos are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and the health, safety, and comfort of Los Gatos greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas this year's theme is Building for Today, Planning for Tomorrow, as we celebrate the efforts and skill of public work employees in planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining the quality and condition of these facilities. And whereas the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos urges its citizens to join communities throughout the state and the nation in recognizing the substantial contributions that the public works professionals make to the communities they serve. And whereas the Town of Los Gatos Public Works Department will celebrate National Public Works Week by hosting an open house to the community on May 21st, 2014, between 9 and 12 p.m. at 11 at 41 Miles Avenue in Los Gatos. You're all invited to attend. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Stephen Leonardis, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim May 18th through 24th as National Public Works Week within the town of Los Gatos, and call upon all citizens, civic leaders, and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and recognize the contributions which public works professionals make every day to ensure our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Thank you, Mr. Morley.
Thank you.
This is for you.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of myself and all of the great people in Public Works, I thank you for the award or the proclamation. I do invite everybody to come out and join us on the 21st at 9 o'clock, 9 to noon at the Corporation Yard on Miles Avenue. We'll have all of our equipment out there. It's a great opportunity to see all of the things that we do in Public Works and talk to some of the folks about what's going on in the town. Thank you again.
Thank you, Matt. It's also Safe Routes to School Month, and I'd like to invite Ms. Bonnie Broderick, the Director for the Center of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention, to join me at the podium.
Thank you, Mayor Leonardi and council members, town of Los Gatos, staff and community members. I'm Bonnie Broderick at the Public Health Department in Santa Clara County, and I'm here to present two awards to the town of Los Gatos, recognizing the extraordinary work and support of the town in really creating safe environments for our children to walk, bike, and roll to school. Thank you. I'll try not to blow your ears out. Again, the Public Health Department and the Board of Supervisors wanted to take the opportunity to recognize Los Gatos for the work that they have done. So we have two awards here this evening. They really recognize Los Gatos for its outstanding leadership and collaboration with the many community partners that it takes to really change the community norms, to create a community where it's safe, where you protect the kids from injuries, and really help promote their safety and well-being in our town. So some of the ways the town, or some of the extraordinary things the town has already done in terms of promoting Safe Routes to School is to create the Safe Routes to School resolution, which was done in 2012. In addition, the police staff have really participated and done a wonderful job in promoting the Safe Routes to School. They've participated in the Safe Routes to School group, which has representation from all 5 schools within the school district, as well as we have Alta Vista and Hillbrook, who are also members of the Safe Route to School program for Los Gatos. The city engineers have participated in creating, again, infrastructure intersections, improvements near Blossom Hill School, and done many other efforts to create safe environments for kids. This is just a small number of activities that the town has done to promote Safe Routes to School. So the Public Health Department really hopes to continue to work with the town of Los Gatos and its members to create safe communities for all residents. I'm going to take a moment to introduce some of the key leaders in Los Gatos who have really been the backbone and the workforce behind creating Safe Routes to School. So I'm going to call out the names of some of the folks who are here today in the bright orange shirts and recognize them together. So we have Diana Abadi, the superintendent of Los Gatos School District, is here in the back. Thank you. We have Thomas Cook and his daughters Kirsten and Caitlin from Los Gatos High School, who are leaders in this effort and have been leading the group for years now. We have Wendy Doty, yay. She's the Safe Routes to School parent coordinator from Blossom Hill School. Mary Hammers and her children Gracie and Jude are from Hillbrook School. Thank you for being here. And then I get to call out a special one, my daughter, Sarah Geiken from Fisher. She's here, so thank you, Sarah. And her friend Macy, who has also been a participant from Fisher, is not here because she's at softball practice. Karen Briones, who is a health clerk and a parent and a real leader in Safe Routes to School efforts, both for Fisher Middle School and Blossom Hill, is here this evening. Tim Boyd and Caroline are here from Van Meter School. And wave, Caroline? Little wave. And then we also have our staff, Alice Kawaguchi and Tonya Vetch, who are here this evening too, who are all together. This group has done a remarkable job in creating safe environments for our children. So again, we have two, one from the Public Health Department to recognize the town of Los Gatos for all the work that you have done. That's the first one. Thank you. And the second is from a former city council member, Mike Wasserman, who is currently president of the Board of Supervisors. And so I'll read his commendation. It's from the County of Santa Clara, a certificate of commendation to the town of Los Gatos. On behalf of Santa Clara County residents, I commend the town of Los Gatos for their outstanding leadership and collaboration with multiple community partners in reducing injury, improving health, and strengthening the quality of life through efforts to enhance and promote the Safe Routes to School program. I extend to the town of Los Gatos my congratulations and best wishes for the future. Mike Wasserman, President. So, on behalf of the Public Health Department and the Board of Supervisors, I want to thank you for all the great work that the town has done to create these safe environments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And can I call up the orange shirts for a picture? The Safe Routes to School folks of Los Gatos, thank you all for your efforts. The orange shirts, there's the rock and roll, the Safe Routes to School leaders.
Everybody huddle up. You got that with two hands?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Tanya is, Alice is.
Alice, you should get in here too. Maybe Alice. But you do good in orange. So.
All right.
Before you all leave, I just want to say thank you all personally on behalf of the town council for all your efforts in helping to keep our kids safe on the way to school. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that back.
Thank you.
Next, we have a very special presentation. I'd like to invite Yoshiko and Yoko Date forward. Yoshihiko is also referred to as Dave, so I will be referring to him as Dave Date. Yoshi, Dave Date and his wife Miyoko have been residents of Los Gatos, residing in the Ricanata Hills community for 17 years. They're going to be, we have an amazing work of art that they will be presenting this evening. The artist and Mr. and Mrs. Date believe that the town of Los Gatos is the best place to display this art. So they have generously offered to donate this work of art to the town of Los Gatos. And shall we bring it forward so the public can see it? This incredible shadow box was created by Yoshi Kirama from Kawanishi City, Hyogo, Japan. Ms. Kirama visited Los Gatos and was very impressed with our town. She later requested friends to bring her 12 discovery maps so she could create this shadowbox art. Ms. Kirma started doing shadowbox art in 1970, studying under Japan's prominent shadowbox artist and grandmaster Kanae Ohashi, who presides over Japan's Shadowbox Society. And that's located in Hamazuki, Japan. Miss Kirima won an award of excellence in the All Japan Handicraft Art Expedition in 2005. She currently serves as a master instructor of shadowbox art in local Hana-Mizuki classes. The shadowbox will be hung in the west entry to the council lobby and will be admired for years to come. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Date, for your generous donation. And if you'd like to make a few comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And most of us are residents of Los Gatos for the last 17 years. We were born and raised in Japan. I was and finished my school and started working for the company in Japan since 1962. And I have a lot of friends in Japan who wants to come here. And as a matter of fact, I retired almost 12 years ago after working in various places in the world. And the last place I worked is in Silicon Valley, and I resided in this area for almost 24 years, including 17 years in Los Gatos and 7 years in Saratoga. And this is probably taking a little bit less than 1/3 of my life spending in this world. And we have friends who wants to come to visit Los Gatos, and I have probably over 20 friends already came to visit us and repeated several times. And they really love this beautiful city of Los Gatos, or town of Los Gatos, and they really fell in love at first sight. And they like the beauty of the city, amenity of the city, and friendliness of the people of the city. And I am really honored and privileged to be attending this meeting today and have an honor to give this gift as a kind of bridge to make friendship better between the people of Los Gatos and the United States, of course, and the people of Japan. I thank you very much for giving me the time to make this presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Date. Thank you, Ms. Date, for your generous contributions. And we look forward to displaying this, making our town more beautiful than it is. Next is our closed session report. I'd like to have the town attorney.
Yes, good evening.
Speak to
Prior
that.
to tonight's regular council meeting, council met in closed session to discuss real property negotiations. The property discussed was the property at 224 West Main Street. The other item they discussed was the performance evaluation of the town manager. As to both these items, no action was taken that requires reporting under the Brown Act.
Thank you. I would like to take this time to remind those in attendance tonight that if you'd like to speak on any item which is not on our agenda, please feel free to fill out a speaker card that's located in front of you in the aisles. And moving on to the council and manager matters, does any member of council have something they wish to share? Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since our last council meeting, the General Plan Housing Board has met twice, and the Plan Development Ad Hoc Committee has met once.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a busy couple of weeks here. On Wednesday, the 23rd, I attended the Metropolitan Transportation Commission Board meeting in Oakland, and that was followed immediately by the Legislative Action Day and Board of Directors meeting for the League of Cities in Sacramento. That was Wednesday and Thursday. On Thursday the 1st, the Board of Directors of the Valley Transportation Authority met, and I'm a participant on that board. And then on the 2nd, Friday the 2nd, the CDBG Home Joint Powers Authority met at the county office to discuss home enhancements for people of need.
Vice Mayor.
I also attended the Housing Element Advisory Board and the PD Ad Hoc Committee and the Firearms Ad Hoc Committee, along with Councilman Brzezinski this past week.
I, on behalf of the town, attended the West Valley Collection and Recycling Board of Directors General Business Meeting, of which I am now the chairperson. I also attended the Alcohol and Entertainment Ad Hoc Committee meeting and did a number of community events for fun. Moving on to manager matters.
Yes, we have several things to report, Mayor and Council. First, we have a new art installation in the council chambers from the Museums of Los Gatos. These are works from the Los Gatos Camera Club, and we will be having the artist's reception this Thursday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. here in the chambers. Friday is the deadline for the youth of Los Gatos to apply for our youth commissioner seats on both the Youth Commission as well as now the Library Board, the Arts and Culture Commission, and the Community and Senior Services Commission. So encouraging all youth, junior high and high school who attend public or private schools in Los Gatos to apply by this Friday. Applications are available online and are due by 5 p.m. on Friday. Strongly encourage youth to apply. The State of the Town, Mayor, would you like to?
Yes. On May 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Oak Meadow Park, I will be hosting the State of the Town. So it's going to be a family-friendly picnic-type atmosphere where everyone is invited to come. The Billy Jones Railroad will be operating. The carousel will be operating. We will have members from our town boards and commissions there, as well as leaders of the service clubs and many other volunteer organizations around town. So again, that's May 16th at Oak Meadow Park near the William Mason Carousel at 4 p.m. It goes till 6 p.m. Moving on to consent calendar. Does any member of council wish to pull a consent item this evening? Seeing none, does any member of the public wish to pull a consent item? I see none, so I'll look for a motion. Council member. Oh. So two people want to speak on, this is for the agenda. I believe, for the Zona Rosa restaurant. It's not for consent item number 2. Okay. All right. Thank you for checking in on that. So we have Vice Mayor wants to make a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar, which now consists of item 1 through 4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember McNutt.
Mayor, I need to recuse from item number 3 because my property borders the street in question.
All right, so we have a recusal on item 3 from Councilmember McNutt. I will raise the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Now we are moving on to verbal communications, and I do have one card, and this is for Mr. Rick DiNapoli, if you'd please come forward. Oh, Councilmember Spector.
Okay, who goes first, Rick? You or me? You go first.
I'll I'll defer. Happy to defer. Go ahead.
Why don't we have Mr. DiNapoli speak first, since I called him first.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about the action that the council it took a couple of meetings ago and is going to come up again, the traffic impact fees. I was informed of the increase in fees that the council is considering, and while I understand the purpose of it, which was to bring the fees up to current market rates, which I think is an appropriate thing, the manner in which I think the council is intending to do it is draconian. The severest impact, obviously, is going to, according to my reading of the staff report, the traffic impact fees for restaurants and daycare centers go up over 800%, which is far and above any rate of inflation. The real significance, I think, however, is the proposed impact fee on the North 40. That goes up only 450%, but it's $10 million. For all intents and purposes, that will kill the North 40. I have no vested interest in the other than to see a continued growth within the city, but this is really going to significantly stifle development. There is a proposal, and I think we should bring the traffic impact fees up to it, but the manner in which you're doing is to increase it from $600 to $854, and then take away that discount, because because the fees currently you get $600 for the first 10 and $60 for every trip after that. As I read option 2, which the council is proposing to adopt, it's $854 for every trip, and that results in the significant draconian increase in the traffic impact fees, way above any rate of inflation. So I would urge you to increase the fees, but let's do it in a manner that will make Los Gatos competitive from a business standpoint and serve the needs of our citizens. Thank you. I do have one other quick thing. It goes right with Public Works and safety, and that would be some crosswalks. I'd really like to see a crosswalk at Wood and South Santa Cruz Avenue, which is, many people park on South Santa Cruz and they walk up to the Meadows, they walk to my office, right there to the toll house, and people from the post office to the freeway entrance can treat that like they're coming out of the pits at the Indianapolis 500. They put on, so if there was something that would recognize, that they could at least recognize that pedestrians have some right-of-ways, and the way the Public Works could help and hopefully prevent some safety. Thank you very much, and defer to you, Barb.
Thank you, Mr. DiNapoli. Mr. Manager, do you have any comments on the speaker's inquiries?
Yes. 2 responses. The implementing action for the council direction on the traffic impact mitigation fee will be coming back with the budget on May 19th, so that's when that issue is scheduled for council action, and we will take the request for the crosswalk at North Santa Cruz Avenue at Wood and put it in the list of pending projects for town consideration.
Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking on verbal communications because I am not representing the council, but just speaking on behalf of myself. What has happened in the recent past is I have more and more people in the community who are asking me what's going on with Albright, why are we having an election, and as we get closer to the election, those questions come up more. So what I've done is I have my most frequently asked questions. The first most frequently asked question is, wasn't this matter settled? And the answer to that is yes. There was litigation that included the town, the developer of the Albright project, and community members. That litigation was settled in March. However, by the time it was settled, it was too late to remove the initiative from the ballot. So that's why we have it on the ballot and going forward, even though there was a settlement. The second question that comes up is, well, what happens if, since it's settled, what happens if the initiative is not passed? And the answer to that has several components. The first one is, if the initiative does not pass, then the Albright project proceeds for development under the plan development that was approved by this council. And that actually has started. That process has actually started. If the initiative does pass, it will be a specific plan that is going to ask the community to amend the general plan. If the initiative does not pass, it will go forward with the council's plan development, which will not need an amendment to the general plan. And whether it goes forward as the specific plan under the initiative or the general plan adopted by the council, there will be similarities. They will have under both jobs in Los Gatos, property tax generation for schools and the town, community benefit funds, and allows Netflix to remain in Los Gatos. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Spector. Does anybody else wish to speak under verbal communications? I have no other cards. Seeing none, we will move on to our first public hearing of the evening, which is the hazardous vegetation brush abatement, where the council will be considering adopting a resolution declaring hazardous vegetation a public nuisance and providing for abatement. We have a staff report provided by Mr. Matt Morley, our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This is an annual project that we run in combination with, or in partnership with the county. The county does a routine assessment of properties in the town that have brush in and around the property. They provide notice to the property owners and request that they abate the nuisance, the brush. Subsequently, if the property owner is not responsive, the county will take care of the abatement themselves and charge the property owner for that work. This is the initial item on this to set a hearing for June 2nd, at which point property owners will have the opportunity to discuss this in front of council. And with that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Morley. Does anyone on council have questions of staff or disclosures to make regarding this item? Seeing none, looking for a, I have no cards on this matter, so if anybody wants to speak, please step forward. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for council to discuss or make a motion on this. Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution declaring hazardous vegetation brush a public nuisance and providing for abatement as indicated in attachment 1, setting June 2nd, 2014 as the public hearing to hear protests.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It passes unanimously. Moving on to our next public hearing, which is conditional use permit application U-14-002. The project is located at 81 West Main Street, and we are considering a request to modify a conditional use permit to increase seating and provide full alcoholic beverage service for a restaurant on property zoned commercial 2 LHP. And providing our staff report is Ms. Jennifer Savage.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The applicant is proposing to modify an existing conditional use permit. Specifically, they are proposing to modify the seats from 6 to 26, alcoholic beverage service from none to full, and the hours of operation are proposed as 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. The project was reviewed by the Planning Commission in March, and they recommended approval of the application with new and modified conditions. The modified conditions include a sentence within the use condition that specifies no standalone bar or counter would be permitted. It also modifies the community benefit condition to specifically add a public bench as the applicant's proposed community benefit. The two new conditions are in regards to trash and recycling hours, as well as consideration for electronic pagers for patrons waiting to be seated. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Questions of staff? Any disclosures from council? Councilmember McNutt?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I don't have any disclosures, but I do have 2 questions of staff. Should I go ahead with my questions now?
Yes, please.
So my question is on community benefit. About 2 years ago, I think we had I believe it was a joint session with Planning Commission where we talked about getting rid of community benefit because it doesn't really align with anything. And I'm curious, apparently we haven't done that yet because it's still in here. And this is a good example of why, in my opinion, it shouldn't be in there because a bench has nothing to do with traffic impacts. So it's not really a question so much on this application as where are we on that work of revising that to get rid of the, I'll just get rid of the community benefit.
The community benefit requirement that comes out of the traffic impact policy remains a voluntary offering from the applicant that's approved by the Planning Commission and/or council at the time of project approval. There is standing council direction to update the definition of community benefit in several of its forms throughout various policies, and it's one of the projects we're hoping to complete with the transition of the director over the next month of the community
So just to
development.
clarify that the applicant would understand that this is something they're voluntarily offering, that it's not we won't look at you unless you give us a bench situation.
That is correct.
Thank you. And then my second question is, when I'm looking on the layout of the plan, the tables and chairs seem really close together, and is there in either town or fire department regulations anything that specifies a minimum amount of space that must be between tables and chairs, and if so, does this comply?
There is a fire code that specifies when your seats are movable, they're not permanent benches per se. There's a maximum occupancy per that. That would be reviewed at the building permit stage and has not been reviewed just yet.
So does that mean that there's a chance that when it gets to building review stage, the fire department could say, this is too many seats?
That is possible. However, the project was reviewed by the fire department and the building department, and no issues have been raised at this time.
So they have looked at it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Councilmember Brzezinski?
I'm going to go with the declaration. I did visit the site down on the Alameda, and I met with the applicant, and feel much more aware of what might come into town as a result of that visit. My question of staff relates to the 4 issues that the Planning Commission recommended to modify conditions. And they came up before, the question of a counter. There is a counter. The counter is going to be for food service. It is going to come before us on the ad hoc committee for the entertainment policy. But just to confirm, by stating a standalone bar or counter is not permitted, that accommodates or allows the counter proposed for food service and guarantees that there will not be any alcohol service or actual waiting at that counter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this question of the electronic pagers. This is because there is no waiting area inside the restaurant itself. And that means that the individuals who are there and seating is not available will therefore be able to walk around town and when they're called, come back. So it doesn't indicate that there's going to be a queue at the front door waiting to get in, because it's a fairly busy part of Main Street, given the coffee roasting company and adjacent businesses. Is that your understanding, that it will accommodate the fact that people will not have to queue up to wait in front of this the building?
That is staff's consideration. The condition is a recommendation only to consider, not to require the applicant to use the pagers.
All right, so they can basically play it by ear. If it works for them, or if it's a need, then they can accommodate it. If not, then it's not a mandatory
Yes.
request. Thank you.
Councilmember Spector.
Thank you. First of all, the disclosure, I did meet with the applicant. Then I had a couple of questions, sort of going along the same line as Ms. McNutt. The community benefit, you said that it's voluntary, but how would an applicant know to volunteer something unless that issue isn't raised with them somehow?
During our application review process, we do meet with the applicant at least once, usually more than once, and we do discuss the issue of community benefit. We do provide them the policy explaining that it does have to come as a voluntary offer from the applicant, as well as verbally explain to them that it's something staff can't suggest, but rather that the applicant have to offer it.
With regard to the community benefit of a public bench, was that an applicant suggestion, a staff suggestion? And what benefit, I mean, I know what a benefit of a bench is, you can sit down, but what benefit does staff see in this offer?
The item of a public bench was an example that was provided to the applicant. As you can imagine, a lot of times applicants come to staff and they say, well, I have no idea what to provide as a community benefit. And so in the past, and with this particular application, we do give the applicant examples of what projects have offered in the past. In this particular case, the applicant did feel that a bench is something that they wanted to explore and offer. Their original thought was to provide one in the downtown area as it would relate to their space. There's a public bench in front of their space, or quite a few nearby along that area of Main Street. And unfortunately, in this case, the downtown area is full from a public bench perspective, and so staff let the applicant know that parks were available and needed benches.
All right, and one more question. Again, going along with Ms. McNutt's question, I looked at the diagram, and maybe the diagram of the seating and tables is not spot on accurate. Does staff feel comfortable with the seating diagram or the seating proposal? Because it does look awfully tight.
It does, and staff is comfortable. More often than not, when a seating plan is proposed at this stage, there are details that would be worked out at the building permit stage. The conditional use permit puts a maximum number of seats on the use. It doesn't put a minimum. So certainly if they went through the building code and the fire department and the building department found that there was an issue with the configuration of the seats and those would have to be reduced, they would have the opportunity to do so at that time.
Vice Mayor.
Disclosing that I met with the applicant.
I will also disclose that I met with the applicant. So any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we will call the applicant forward to present. You have 10 minutes.
To take 10 minutes? Okay. My name is Ana Pizzo, and I am the owner chef of Zona Rosa. I opened Zona Rosa in July of 2012 in the Rose Garden community in San Jose. It has been received well in the community and is a profitable business. I'm excited to bring to Los Gatos a full-service restaurant that has a proven concept that offers affordable, high-quality Mexican cuisine. The concept of Zona Rosa is farm to table that offers a healthy style of eating. We specialize in seasonal dishes that are inspired by my family recipes. All our food is made from scratch. We serve organic blue corn, yellow corn tortillas. Everything is hand pressed. We do not use microwaves. We do not mass produce. We take pride in our recipes and how we make our food. With regards to alcohol, Zona Rosa will offer a limited cocktail menu to complement the menu. It is not the focus of Zona Rosa. We do not have any plans to have any bar seating or any counter service. We will serve drinks only with meals. In summary, Los Gatos, my concept in the Rose Garden, I will continue that in Los Gatos. I'm excited to open a business in Los Gatos because it offers a unique downtown setting with a community that values entertainment and recreational options. I understand there are 3 other Mexican restaurants in Los Gatos. However, I feel that Zona Rosa will bring a variety to the community to enjoy. With regards to the pager system that the Planning Commission brought up, I did research. We currently use OpenTable, and they do have a feature that is text and wait feature that allows you to put your name in and wait and shop and while you wait. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, we will invite you back up after the public comment period. We have 1 card so far. I would like to invite anyone who would like to speak on this matter to fill out a card. The first speaker is Heidi Reebach.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Heidi Raybach, and I'm a long-time resident of Los Gatos. I moved here in 1974, and I opened my first retail business in Los Gatos in 1991 and was a retail presence in the downtown area for 20 years. Although I will always consider Los Gatos my home, I have recently moved to the Rose Garden area of San Jose. And in my attempt to immerse myself in my new neighborhood, I visited every restaurant around and very quickly became a regular at Zona Rosa. Zona Rosa is a wonderful, charming, intimate, fabulous food. It reminds me very much of the original Nick's on Main, the kind of restaurant where you just, the owner comes out and you feel like a regular even the first time you're there. The food's outstanding. Although I would never consider Zona Rosa a drinking establishment, I'm here to ask you if I can have a margarita with my carnitas. I feel it's an important part to the success of Zona Rosa to be able to serve alcohol in a limited manner with the cuisine, no bar, and I think that it is essential to the success of the restaurant in Los Gatos to model her success on the Alameda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reebach. Next speaker is Jason Farwell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Jason Farwell, 18 Park Avenue in Los Gatos. Just trying to nip an issue in the bud that might come up tonight relating to parking. I think that's been a concern with new intensifications of restaurant uses. And just to be clear, this property is a part of the parking assessment district. I believe the property has 39 spaces allocated to it. Currently, we're only using about 31 spaces. And with the additional seating, I think we would add 5 to that count. So it would take us up to 36 out of 39 spaces, still leaving 3 spaces remaining, obviously. And, you know, we think this is a fantastic use for this location. We've had a number of businesses come and go through here, and we're looking for some longevity. And we think Zona Rosa has the legs to do it. Obviously, you've seen the storefront, and it's papered over windows for some time now, and we'd obviously like to get that taken down and get an operating business there. And Anna has, you know, displayed to us, and I think hopefully to you folks, that she's a responsible business owner and is committed to serving the town. In addition to the parking issue, tonight I did take an opportunity to walk some of the public lots, one off of Park Avenue and the other off of Montebello. And granted, it is a Monday evening, but there were 16 open spaces at the Park Avenue lot and 21 at the Montebello lot. So I just throw that out there for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farwell. That was the last card I had for the public speakers. I would like to invite Ms. Pizzo back up. You have 5 more minutes if you need them. If you don't want them, you don't have to take them. Okay. All right, we will officially close the public hearing and move to council for discussion and motions. Councilmember McNutt.
Mayor, I'm sorry, can you reopen the public hearing? I had a question for Ms. Pizzo, I forgot. I thought she was going to come back up.
We certainly can.
Thank you, Ms. Pizzo. So this is could sound silly, but it's the kind of thing that can come back and be a problem later. And it came up with Pedro's. So you have nachos on your menu, and I assume that it could be a meal. and that people might come in and just order nachos and a glass of wine? Does that ever happen?
No. At Zona Rosa, typically, we attract a lot of business professionals, and a lot of them come in, and that's typically an appetizer. We rarely have anyone come in and just order an item and a drink. So far, I've been in business for almost 2 years, and most customers come in to have a meal and have a cocktail. Some no cocktail, just a meal.
So the reason I'm asking is because the way it's currently phrased in your conditions, nachos is put in the same category as popcorn and pretzels, meaning that it doesn't count as a meal. So if someone came in and ordered nachos and a glass of wine, that wouldn't work. So in many Mexican restaurants, nachos could be a meal because they're a fairly hefty portion. So
Ours is a meal.
Yours is a meal?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be best for you to have that removed from the same category as popcorn and pretzels.
Okay.
Is that
Thank you.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Pizzo? Okay, thank you. So now we will reclose the public hearing and look to council for discussion or motions. Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have any discussion. I think this is pretty clear in my mind. Everything that has been said and all the responses that we've gotten have been in support. And my visiting of the Alameda site reinforced what probably is going to be a great addition to our Los Gatos culinary environment. So I'm willing to make the required findings as indicated in attachment 1 and approve the conditional use permit U14002 with the modifications recommended by the Planning Commission and also the removal of the nachos from the snack piece as recommended by Councilwoman McNutt. And that's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second, Vice Mayor?
I'd like to second the motion. I'm not as troubled by the nachos because I know that we are considering redefining what counts as a meal and what doesn't, and I don't think nachos are a bar snack, which I think is going to be the new definition. I'm also not concerned about the seating, and Heidi brought up the old Nick's, and if that wasn't too crowded, I don't know what could be. So I'm confident that everyone will work out how many seats fit in there, and I'm happy to support the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll support the motion, but just a question for the maker of the motion. Do you really feel that it's necessary to have a condition about suggesting the use of electronic pagers? To me, that seems like an operational issue that gets far beyond a land use decision. So if you wanted to amend the motion to get rid of that, I would find that pleasing, but I'll support the motion either way.
All right, so that would be a request. You were the seconder of the motion, is that not a request? Okay. With the seconder of the motion, I would be willing to do that because I understand that there is some accommodation through Open Table that you're looking at that would be probably more viable than the pager issue. So, yeah, I would be willing to remove that as a recommendation.
Vice Mayor.
The only thing I'd say to that is that the pagers is a recommendation, not a requirement.
Right.
So we've had a suggestion, maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. And there are people that don't have apps on their phone to do that, so maybe the pager might work for those people. So to me, as long as it's not a requirement but a suggestion, I'm not troubled by it being there, but I'm not going to revoke my second if you want to change it.
This is getting really complicated, isn't it? This is, I'm going to leave that in the motion, okay? Because it's an option. You may not ever use it, and you might not even find it viable, but the Vice Mayor's point is well made. Not everybody has a smartphone. Maybe one person doesn't have a smartphone, and so if that's the case, then we'll leave it in. But we understand what you're trying to do is you don't want a huge crowd waiting out in front, and you'll make accommodations for that. So the motion stands, and I hope that doesn't change Councilwoman McNutt's vote on this particular issue.
Other comments or discussion? I will just add that I also will be supporting the motion. I went to Zona Rosa last Friday and had lunch prior to meeting Ms. Pizzo. She didn't even know I was there dining. And I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for Los Gatos to participate in this business. Look at it being great potential moving forward. So saying that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. Passes unanimously.
Now, Mr. Mayor, I think there is also a necessity of our adopting the resolution. Okay, we did not include it, actually. We just included the conditions of the use permit. So I'm going to move to adopt the resolution of approval with recommendations of the conditions of the use permit to modify the use permit to increase the seating and provide full alcoholic beverage service for the restaurant Zona Rosa on property zone C2LHP, and that's contained in attachment 2 of our report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Passes unanimously.
And just to clarify for the record, Mr. Mayor, the deletion of the word nachos is included in the second motion as well.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We'll move on to our next public hearing this evening, which is the regulation and operation of leaf blowers. We will be introducing the first reading of an ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos amending Section 16.20.060 of the Town of Los Gatos Municipal Code to regulate the use and operation of leaf blowers and add in Section 16.20.070 related to enforcement. And our staff report will be provided by Ms. Christina Gilmore.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Christina Gilmore, Assistant to the Town Manager. I'd like to advise the Council that a desk item was distributed this afternoon on this public hearing item. The purpose of this evening's public hearing is to approve the first reading and introduction of an ordinance amending Section 16.20.60 of the Municipal Code to regulate the use and operation of leaf blowers and to add 16.20.70 related to enforcement. So in July of 2012, the town adopted a sustainability plan, and within that plan, a recommendation was made to adopt a leaf blower ordinance. In August of 2013, the first of 2 study sessions was held on this topic. At the conclusion of the first study session, the council asked staff to return at a later date with additional information that included surveys of cities with existing leaf blower ordinances and to provide recommendations to regulate leaf blower use, as well as recommendations on educational and leaf blower exchange options. In December of 2013, the second study session was held, where the council gave direction to draft an ordinance amendment for adoption and to develop an outreach plan and implement a 6-month soft enforcement effort. The proposed amendment to the powered equipment section of the town code is as follows. Gasoline leaf blowers shall be prohibited from use in all residential, commercial, and industrial zones or public space. Electric leaf blowers in excess of 65 decibels shall be prohibited from use in all residential, commercial, and industrial zones or public space. Electric leaf blowers shall be operated only during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekends, in residential, commercial, industrial, public spaces, or noise-sensitive zones, and leaf blower use will be prohibited on Sundays and holidays. In addition to these changes, a new section, 16.20.70, has been added that addresses enforcement and penalties. Staff proposes that the ordinance goes into effect 30 days after its adoption. After its adoption, a 7-month soft enforcement period will be implemented. At that time, only warning letters will be issued to anyone found to be out of compliance with the ordinance. And after January 1st, 2015, enforcement penalties will go into effect. The proposed public outreach includes information posted about the ordinance on the town website and distributed through the town's listservs and Nextdoor Los Gatos, a town-wide mailing to all residents and businesses, notices posted on KCAT, and distribution of information on the ordinance through other organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce. Staff's recommendation is to approve the first reading and an introduction of an ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos, amending Section 16.20.60 of the Town of Los Gatos Municipal Code to regulate the use and operation of leaf blowers and adding Section 16.20.70 related to enforcement. Alternatives include make no changes to the current ordinance and modify the proposed ordinance amendment. This concludes the presentation, and staff is available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmore. Questions of staff? Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. So just kind of fair warning as we start this item, I have a lot of concerns about it. I think it's a huge leap that our community isn't aware of and are going to be shocked and concerned about. But should council move ahead with it tonight, I do want to see if we can clarify both the communication timeline and how complaints would be registered and followed up on. So I know that you have both in your presentation, in the staff report, and in the follow-up desk item, we got kind of an outline of some of the steps. But can you run me through the timeline? So, pick some dates at random. So this goes into effect on June 1. When would a mailer actually be sent out? When would the new regulation take effect? How long would the grace period be? So can you kind of just take me through that? Because it feels, along with the huge shock that's coming, should we go ahead, really compact it and not maybe enough time?
Yes, so assuming that council does approve the introduction tonight and the ordinance comes back for a second reading in 2 weeks, then the adoption of the ordinance would happen 30 days after the second reading, so that would take us into mid-June. And then from there, what we would do is work on the postcard mailing that we're proposing to all residents and businesses within the town. So I already have draft content are drawn up, and we'll be working with the mail house to send that out. So that could be sent out as early as the beginning of June, the end of May, beginning of June. So that's sort of the time frame that we're looking at, assuming that council does take action this evening.
So can I just do my follow-up thing? So by the time our residents and businesses get notice and property owners get notice, it's already in effect. So they're already out of compliance. They're already breaking the law if they are continuing to use their regular equipment and manner of cleanup on their property. Is that right?
So the intent of the soft enforcement, the proposed 7-month soft enforcement, is to allow people to come into compliance with the ordinance. So code enforcement would only issue letters of notice. We're calling them warning letters right now, but right now it would be letters of notice to let people know of the new ordinance and how they could come into compliance, and to understand that they have until January 1st, 2015 to come into compliance before any more permanent enforcement action would be taken. So residents and businesses would have a period of time to come in compliance, and any notices that they receive from our code enforcement officers would just be warning letters or advisement letters to let them know of the adopted ordinance.
So do we have the flexibility of saying that the start time is different than 30 days after the adoption?
If the council so chooses.
So it could be more like what we did with the plastic bag?
Yes.
So that there's more time for education and kind of getting everybody aware. And then on the communication pieces, I think during the study session, because so many of our properties are serviced by landscaping or gardening services, that we had talked about some kind of a flyer that homeowners or property owners could give to their vendors that would be translated in Spanish and Vietnamese, so it wouldn't be just the standard postcard. Are we still, thinking about things like that?
So the proposed mailer would be not a small postcard, but a larger postcard with all the information. We'd also have a web page component of that, so people can go to the web page to download any flyers or handouts that they would like to give to their gardeners or landscape services. So the thought is to try to contain some costs by doing a larger postcard as opposed to a regular 8.5 by 11 mailing. But of course, if the council directs us to do some other communication vehicle, we will absolutely take that into consideration.
And then if I can just follow up on, so the second half of my question is how people, you hear a blower somewhere, and you think it's too loud, or it's the wrong kind, or it's the wrong hour, it's the wrong date, how do people know who to call? Is that in the postcard also, or are they likely to call the police department on this?
Correct. So we are proposing that our code enforcement compliance officers will be taking care of handling complaints. Complaints can come into, right now, to code compliance, either through an online complaint form that people can fill out, or a town phone number. So we will be providing that information in all of the outreach materials so that people can contact the code compliance, and then they will follow up at the addresses that are reported.
And my last question for right now, then, so if they're reported, they're found to be breaking the law, at what point do they get charged $500 or thrown in jail? Is that wouldn't happen until 2015? Is that
correct? So the 7 months off enforcement is only meant to send advisory notices or letters to people found to be out of compliance, to make sure that they understand the new ordinance and the law, and for staff to answer any questions that they may have. And then beginning January 1st, 2015, if people are found to be in repeat violation of the ordinance, then that's when the enforcement and penalties would begin to take effect.
Does a judgment call made by
the code enforcement officer?
Okay, that's it for right now.
Okay. Further questions of staff? None at this time. We will move on to the public comments on this. The first speaker is Craig Stern. Steve? Okay, thank you.
At last, a controversial topic, eh? I penned a letter to you in 2012, those of you that were seated at the time, in July, and this followed the letter that I penned to the Los Gatos Weekly back when it was free. And so I noticed there are letters following from other concerned residents about this. By the way, I'm a 30-year resident of Los Gatos. As a teacher of over 27 years, I started to notice on my medical alerts that we all get for my case, 144 students that would come through my door every day. They became larger and larger, and to the point they were 3 and 4 pages towards the end of my teaching career. And I started, well, I always looked at what the medical alert was, but asthma started to become the predominant feature. In fact, page of asthma. And as a coach, I was seeing more of it out on the field. And I guess I had my epiphany as I was sitting at Los Gatos Boulevard the other day, Highway 9, and I watched a gentleman with his leaf blower blowing out clouds of dust and particulate matter into the air between the cars as they drove by and the kids coming from school walking by. And then I started looking at my own street, and I noticed practically everyone has a leaf blower service. And notice I'm calling it a leaf blower service, not gardening, because I worked as a maintenance worker for a park service down in Santa Barbara while I went to college. And we actually had to do gardening, not just work a leaf blower. That said, as I started to research this thing, I found that the World Health Organization, they did set a sound level, and I wasn't concerned about that, but they set that as 55 decibels for being harmful. Above that, it can be harmful, and of course, leaf blowers are run about 75. But what really catches my attention is the particulate matter that's being cast into the air and circulated. Even on when we have the no spare the air days, just stand outside and you can hear those things just humming away, blowing more stuff into the air. In fact, it's to the tune of 5 pounds for every hour that those machines are operating. In other words, 498 times more hydrocarbons than a large car, 26 times more carbon monoxide. Some of the, according again to the Health Organization, some of the compounds include, besides dust, lead, mold, ash, spore, heavy metals, pesticides, fertilizer, fungicides, herbicides, fungi, and even fecal matter. Yuck. Again, citing the EPA, they said that this contributes to pulmonary disease, allergies, which I've got and you probably do too, cardiac conditions such as arrhythmia. Do I have a leaf blower? Yeah, I have a leaf blower. I have a 160-foot driveway. It's electric. Do I detest the cord? Yes. I put a variable speed, not that I'm an engineer, but I put a variable speed regulator on it because when I worked for the Parks Department, my gasoline leaf blower was variable speed. In other words, you don't have to operate it at 200 miles per hour, which is the blow speed. So is that something that I'm supposed to?
Your time is up. You could finish your sentence.
Okay, sorry. So anyway, I definitely commend you for dealing with this issue finally, if not only for the inconvenience that it's causing a lot of people in town, but for the kids that are going to be growing up with this level of particulate matter in the air. And by the way, Santa Clara County has done a great job with the no burn days. People do get reported, they do come out, and you don't see a whole lot of smoke fires going on no burn days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Next speaker is Mr. Lee Fagot.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm a resident of Blossom Manor in the town section of Blossom Manor. Have been for 16 years, and I can tell you what day of the week it is by whose lawn is being serviced. I agree very much with this concept, and I appreciate the council taking action on our behalf. I agree that going to electric blowers is the way to go. I have an electric blower as well. Unfortunately, we did a little experiment with some of my neighbor kids, science project, and my blower is too loud, so this gives me an opportunity to get a new blower. The only concern I have with this is the dates that are selected on when a lawn service can be done. I travel, as do some of my neighbors, and sometimes the only day that we can get to our lawns, and if there's an event coming up where we want to manicure our lawns a little further, again, dates are particular, and not being able to do our lawn on Saturday afternoons or on Sundays or holidays would be a problem. And I would suggest going forward with the ordinance that, in fact, some consideration be made for residents at least to be able to use their in compliance blowers, lawnmowers, et cetera, on those days as well. Whereas the services which are contracted out should, in my view, not be able to work on those Saturday afternoons, Sundays, and holidays. So I just ask for a consideration or modification to the ordinance to allow residents to be able to work on their lawns on whatever day they choose or actually need to. So that's the consideration. The other concern was as Ms. McNutt pointed out, was the question on the prior notice. So if the mailing goes out to be timed so that the residents have some notice before the ordinance is in effect, I think that would make sense. That mailing, that postcard, could also be one that has a phrase in it that says, this postcard can also be handed to your contract service, lawn service, so that it eliminates additional paperwork and so forth. So the same postcard is to the resident or to the business, and they can pass that on. That's it. Again, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and really appreciate your effort in this for behalf of all the citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fagot. Next speaker, Mary Keith Osborne.
Good evening. I've had the experience of living in Los Gatos for almost 75 years. In the last 35 years, the use of leaf blowers the quietness of the area has changed because of the leaf blowers. They weren't here 35 years ago. People used rakes and brooms, and we had a wonderful, it was fine. But there's another group of beings that you forget about, the pollinators and predatory insects. The huge amount of dust settles on their wings, causing them to lose their ability to fly and pollinate the plants and reproduce. The wind created by leaf blowers also blows them off course and causes them stress. I've watched leaf blowers blow leaves from under the trees. Not only does that dust blow into the atmosphere, into my yard and my house, but destroys the cooling effect the leaves would have on the roots. Leaves slow down the evaporation of moisture. Soil microbes and beneficial insects and earthworms also live under the leaves. I've had the experience of being working with a cooperative extension, University of California, as a certified master gardener for 14 years. I have listened to lectures given by botanists and biologists from the UC who maintain that their experience and research that leaf blowers are detrimental to insects and plants for the above reasons I've stated. They have said as well that it's not advantageous to be too neat, to always have blowers going. It's not good. Your ordinance does not go. In fact, I'd like to see the leaf blowers completely banned. I'm also have garden clients. I'm still gardening for people, and I would love to tell them, hey, you can't use these blowers anymore. There's also battery-operated ones. I have a battery-operated one. I use it as least as possible. I use brooms and rakes, and I get very upset. And as he said, the asthmatic and elderly people have trouble with their lawns. Vacuums are okay. But I live next door to a huge estate, and other people all have these Mexican gardeners, and it's the noise, they're just completely, it's horrible. So I hope that you, anyway, I'm almost finished, but I guess I've got my points through. I worked on this and then heard other people talk, and so yeah, I hope that that you change the ordinances to really reduce the use of leaf blowers tremendously more than you have done.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Next speaker, Michael Alexander.
Good evening. Would it be okay if I play something from my phone for 15, 20 seconds?
Do we have those capabilities in
I'll just do it right here.
I suppose that would be fine.
Thank you. I think you get the point. I appreciate you letting me do that. That is from the window of my home office. On any given day of the week, I can open my window, and that's what it sounds like. When I close the window, it's a little tiny bit quieter. I know all of us in this room have heard that. I'm sure you all hear it from your homes. But the reality is that's what we've brought ourselves to. Everybody has one of these things used in their yard. The noise pollution is becoming overwhelming. The opposition to leaf blowers usually includes people who talk about the costs of changing into other types of things, battery-operated exchange programs and that sort of thing. What I'd like to point out, there's a hidden cost, a healthcare cost that these things have by exacerbating allergies and asthma. And on the air pollution side, this is just unfiltered, unmitigated exhaust. It's the purest form of smog. The gas goes into the chamber, it explodes, pure smog comes out the back end. Other towns and cities have eliminated them, like Palo Alto. None of the doom and gloom scenarios that were spoken about then came to pass. And I really don't think this is going to be a huge shock to the community. I think you're going to see a huge sense of relief when that postcard goes out. So I'm really glad that after all these years in Los Gatos and seeing the use of these things skyrocket, that finally people are starting to talk about it. And finally, you folks, really grateful that it's even being discussed. So I really hope that you pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Next speaker, Martin Stu Zinski.
That's great. I love that. I'd like to read a brief statement. My home is on the Los Gatos-San Jose border. Recently, my work has taken me to all parts of Los Gatos, and I find remarkable the number of commercial lawn services working in these neighborhoods daily, including weekends, both Saturday and Sunday. Many people don't realize the gas power tools used by these services make extensive use of two-cycle motors, which burn a highly air-polluting mix of gasoline and oil. Of course, homeowners also make use of gas lawn tools. The vast majority of leaf blowers use these very polluting two-cycle engines. Moreover, the high RPM, wailing, grating noise generated by the most egregious of these, the gas leaf blower, seems to be a near constant, stress-inducing presence during daylight hours. Sometimes several gas blowers are being used simultaneously on the same street. It's very difficult to enjoy one's hard-earned home, and I find myself anticipating the noise starting up even when things are quiet. Leaf blowers also create an aerosol of unburned fuel, dust, debris, pollen, and fungal spores. These particulates have been implicated in exacerbating allergies and even potentially very serious diseases such as asthma, other respiratory conditions, and valley fever. Another thing, global CO2 levels are at record highs. We need to take more steps to reduce air pollution and burning petroleum. For the reasons above and for ease of enforcement, I highly recommend a complete ban on all gas leaf blowers. Over 20 other California cities have banned or restricted gas blower use. Two-cycle motors have been banned from road use for decades. As a substitute, portable electric battery-powered blowers are readily available. I am working to ban gas leaf blowers in San Jose, and the San Jose City Council is considering arguments to implement a ban. Over 380 people have signed my online petition. If you're interested, search Ban Leaf Blowers San Jose. A ban in Los Gatos will set a healthy and sane precedent for other nearby cities to join the others in California and the United States that have already implemented gas leaf blower bans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Colin Corbett.
Good evening. So I wasn't aware of this until last night, so I did a bit of research. Turns out that commercial leaf blowers operate around 90 to 105 decibels. So I saw the 65 decibel limit. I said, okay, what does that look like? And so I searched on Amazon for leaf blowers, for electric leaf blowers, and I wrote down the top 15, and I looked to see what their sound rating was. So of the 15, 4 of them don't disclose what their sound level was, and of the 11 that were remaining, only 2 of them were 65 dB or less. So that really means that of the leaf blowers that were out of the on the market of what I saw, only 18% of them actually conformed to the criteria. For reference, all of them, though, were below 70. So it may make sense to adjust this to 70. On Sundays, but my next point would be for Sundays, electrical and gas lawnmowers are still allowed. And again, a lawnmower will operate up to, from what I found, up to 160 dB. So if you block a leaf blower on Sunday, you can still mow your lawn, you can still edge through your lawn, you just can't blow up the leaves and clean it up. So it may make sense to allow look to allow the leaf blower on a Sunday. I had a couple of other things. I looked at the existing fee schedule, and there is actually a fine for 16.20.60, which is $500. And that doesn't quite match with what we're putting in for 16.20.70, which also includes going to jail and 6 months and a $1,000 fine. So that was a little surprising to me. So that made me dig into it a little more. And the way that 1620.70 is written is that it applies to the entire chapter. And the chapter actually is everything including noise. So that includes curfew, noise, construction, birds, and vehicles. So if 1620-70 is supposed to apply to just the leaf blowers, it should probably be restricted to just apply just to the leaf blowers. And then I did a little bit of research. It turns out in 16.20.10, it defines powered equipment. Now, powered equipment is a lot of things. It's lawnmowers, edgers, blowers, fans, and vacuums. So you could argue that, taking the very extreme of this, it could be illegal to operate a vacuum in your house after 4 o'clock on a weekend. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Pete Siemens.
Good evening. Waited a long time to see this, and I absolutely support the intent of the ordinances, and the people that wrote some very eloquent letters in favor of the ordinance and some of the things you've already gotten in the mail. I had a couple of questions. I had one technical issue that I'd like to raise on the ordinance. One of the other writers of the letters also raised the same issue. But essentially, a noise level requirement on a piece of equipment is meaningless without specifying the distance. So your ordinance needs to be fixed, otherwise it's going to be challenged. It can be challenged and probably thrown out in court. I could walk up to a electric-powered, very quiet leaf blower and probably run over 90 dB if I go about this way, far away from it. So we absolutely need to have a distance. So I did write up some words that might be included in the ordinance, which I can give to the clerk. The second question I had was in the article under C, it says miscellaneous non-stationary equipment. And my question is, was it intent not to specify a noise level on that equipment? And the reason I asked that is the town already has a noise level ordinance, which supposedly should cover that, but there isn't a whole lot of interest in enforcing it, and at least in my experience. And the other problem is that the noise ordinance that's currently written varies depending on which neighborhood you're in. Now, what I like about this ordinance that was drafted, this 65 dB is specified everywhere. It just needs to have a distance measurement from the equipment. So I'm recommending that you include the 65 dB on all this miscellaneous non-stationary equipment. And then there was a third thought that occurred to me, that a lot of the new equipment is battery powered, which means somebody's going to have to charge it, which means portable generators. And portable generators are run on gasoline. They tend to be 4-cycle engines mostly, which are better, but they sometimes can be noisy and sometimes can be nice and quiet. I run into this at certain events I run to where people bring portable generators. There's some that you hardly hear, others that are obnoxious and probably will run as high as the noise level of a leaf blower. So I would suggest you add another paragraph that would limit, at least limit the noise level on stationary electric gas-powered generators. So, anybody have a question that I can?
The Vice Mayor has a question for you.
Mr. Siemens, I'm curious about the language that you're proposing with respect to the distance. And you said you could pass it out, but if you could just read the portion.
I'll give it to the clerk, but it's, I was going to suggest to make a minor change to B, which would read, electric leaf blowers with noise in excess of 65 decibels shall be prohibited from use in all residential, et cetera, zones and public space. This limit applies with maximum blower power at a distance of 50 feet.
Thank you.
We have another question from Councilmember Spector.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, through you, a question of staff.
Yes.
Because it relates to what Mr. Siemens was saying. I was under the impression that when you have an electric leaf blower, and it has a certain rating, i.e. 65 dBs, that 65 dB is measured from a certain distance, i.e. 50 feet. And if you're just right on top of your 65 dB electric blower, it's actually louder. So I was under the impression that there was an industry standard and an industry standard that says you have a 65 dB blower is actually measured from a distance not right on top of it.
I can't confirm that. The number. I do know that there is an industry standard, but I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to research that and return back to the council with that information.
Mr. Mayor, if I can try one more question.
Go ahead.
I think that it might be that if we can ask Parks and Public Works, we could get an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. You are correct. 50 feet is the industry standard, ANSI standard for measuring the noise level. It would be higher right on top of the piece of equipment.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
It's not for Mr. Siemens. I'll leave it for a staff question.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Siemens. Next speaker is Lee Quintana.
Lee Quintana, 5 Palm Avenue. Just like to comment that noise impacts to human hearing is a cumulative effect. So the more you hear noise at higher decibels, the more the cumulative effect is, and the more likely over time you will lose your hearing. One of the things I wanted to comment on is that I often see gardeners using blowers and lawnmowers with very high levels of noise without protection. And I'm wondering whether that shouldn't be something that's included in the ordinance that requires the use of ear guards or whatever they're called to protect people's hearings, particularly the gardeners who are on contract. I would support having a day and holidays when no type of gardening equipment that is noisy is allowed, so that some of us who like to enjoy our yards have predictability of when we can go out there and actually enjoy them without having to wonder whether all of a sudden there's going to be disruption from unexpected equipment. The question of the decibel and the distance, that was interesting to me, what was just discussed, because 65 dB, 50 feet from the blower means that if somebody is cleaning or blowing their sidewalk in front of their house at the edge of a property, it's going to be way louder than 65 dB in the adjoining property through most of it, because most, frontages are, considerably less than 100 feet. So you are still impacting your neighbors if you're anywhere near your property line. And my question on industry standard is often at the convenience of the people of the industry, not necessarily meant to protect the public. I think there were some letters that suggested that the use of gas-powered lawnmowers should also be considered, or other gas-powered or equipment higher than 65 dB gardening equipment, because that's part of the nuisance of all the people who have gardeners, and throughout the day it's constant.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dixie Fisher.
Hi, Dixie Fisher, 74.5 Broadway, and I wanted to thank the staff for this recommendation and the council for considering it. It's been a pet project of me and several of my neighbors for some years now because of the disruption, the daily disruption. And I would ask the council please to not consider making the hours shorter. I really would like to have seen us do something like some of the neighboring communities did, where we got till 10 o'clock in the morning before the noise started on a Saturday. And maybe there's a weekday where I could work at home without having the noise blowers impacting my life. So let's at least hold to the hours that have been recommended, please. It really is a quality of life issue, and it has really changed our Broadway neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. That was the last card I have on this. Are there any other cards? I see one coming forward. If you would like to speak, please bring your cards up to the clerk.
I'm Morgan Slane. I live on Broadway, and I just want to thank you for finally considering this proposal. I lived in 3 different communities before moving to Los Gatos in the year 2000, and all 3 of them implemented bans. So I was surprised when I moved here that we didn't have anything under consideration, so I'm really excited that we're finally taking a look at this. And I just wanted to add that for anyone of you who has any concerns about enforcement or implementation, it seems like staff did their homework in talking to officials at some of the other communities that have implemented measures restricting leaf bans. So it seems like we should take a look at the experiences other communities have had, because they can inform our decision about the ways that a ban or restrictions can be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slane. That was the final card, so I will close the public hearing and move on to motions, discussions, questions of staff. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had 2 questions for staff. The first one was, I don't know if maybe this is for Mr. Morley or for Mr. Schultz. If 50 feet is an industry standard and we don't insert any language in the proposed ordinance, is the 50 feet read into it somehow, or is there something that we need to put in there?
I would feel more comfortable if we put something in there now that the issue's been raised. I look back through the definitions, and it's not specifically stated in any of the definitions.
And a second question for Mr. Schultz. The issue of the penalty application, a person brought up that it was going to go across the board to the chapter on noise. When I read this, it was seeming to clearly apply to leaf blowers, but does the use of the word chapter get us into trouble versus ordinance, and should that be changed?
No, and it probably should have been clear in the staff report. This section is supposed to be the enforcement for that whole chapter. This chapter has no enforcement that was written into it. I'm not sure why there wasn't, but there's no enforcement. So it would apply to all the other noise violations that are listed through that chapters, which are dealing with, as was said, curfew, public property noise limitations, construction, amplified noise, street sales, animals and birds, and motor vehicles. So those same would apply, which that enforcement penalties is consistent with your other chapters, which is a maximum up to 500, but you also, for first violation, it's 100, second violation is 250, and third is 500.
Okay.
And with regards to misdemeanors, that's very unlikely, but it's in most of our other chapters, but at the pleasure of the council, they could change that language.
Right, and the misdemeanor is just stating what the maximum penalty for a misdemeanor is, right? Okay, thank you.
Further questions, discussion on this subject? Councilmember Brzezinski.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, to follow up on the last comment about the misdemeanor language, I really can't see us sending someone to county jail for a leaf blower violation, and I think it actually diminishes the significance of what we're trying to do. It kind of makes something a little bit more extreme than I'm comfortable with. I know we never have actually had anyone who's violated a conditional use permit sent off to the slammer. And I don't see this happening ever. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't revisit that language across the board and see if this really is significant to us for our purposes of enforcement and maintenance of this particular issue. Other than that, I think everything I've seen, and I think the staff recommendation makes a lot of sense. I don't see any downside to this, although we have had some comments from some of our residents, particularly in the larger homeowners associations, talking about the impacts that they will experience as a result of this. I'd like to see some time spent in discussion with the members or the officers of those homeowners associations that have raised issues to see exactly what their concern is and how valid it is, because that's where we've gotten some pushback as far as the timing and the dates involved. I'm very comfortable with what's been presented by staff.
Vice Mayor?
I was ready to go ahead with the motion, but I saw Councilwoman Spector's hand up, so I didn't know if I was preempting a question.
Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Vice Mayor. Actually, I just had some comments based upon what we've received and what I've heard. First of all, starting back when we had the prior meeting, I made a comment, and others did also, that we're talking about actually three different impacts. One is the noise, one is the particulate matter, which is health, and one is the quality of life, which is the noise. So it becomes challenging sometimes to come up with an ordinance because you're dealing with three different aspects. And I have all these notes from what people said, but I agree that there are those who've written who think that there's doom and gloom, but I think about Palo Alto, Los Altos, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, and when I visit those places, they don't seem to have a heck of a lot of doom and gloom in their neighborhoods. To the contrary. And then there was someone who said that when these cards are sent out and they're received by everybody in Los Gatos, that there will probably be relief. And I happen to think that that is going to be true. I agree with the modification to the proposed ordinance that defines the 65 feet in some way, such as industry standard, and maybe you've already said that. And I also appreciate the people here this evening who have more ideas, who think that, for example, we should apply this to lawnmowers, or that we should exempt Sundays and holidays. There's a lot of different things that we could do, but given where we are right now, rather than start modifying this ordinance that the council and staff has worked on so hard, I think that we should go forward with it. And I do agree that that modifying the imprisonment provision might be one modification that is warranted. So that being said, I will defer now to the Vice Mayor, who actually deferred to me.
If that's okay with the Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
I was actually prepared to make a motion. I echo the comments that Councilwoman Spector has made. We do have noise issues, we do have health issues, we do have particulate matter issues, and I would point out also we haven't really discussed our sustainability plan and the state regulations for greenhouse gases and whatever Los Gatos can do in that respect, even if it's tiny, I think we should be trying to do. I also appreciated the comments about the leaves in your garden, given that we're in a drought and the recommendation is to mulch and cover your soil with leaves so that the water does not evaporate, so that we can save water. So it has that benefit as well. Given those comments, what I'd like to do, if the mayor will indulge me, is start with a motion to amend the ordinance, and then I realize that I need to direct the clerk to read the title of the ordinance. I don't know if I want to do that now or how. I guess,
Mr. Larson.
why don't I make a motion to have the clerk read the title of the ordinance? first. Do I need to go through the motion making
The
or
mayor
just say?
can simply direct the clerk to read the title.
Okay.
Ms. Neese?
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos amending Section 16.20.60 of the Los Gatos Town Code relating to restrictions on leaf blower operations and adding Section 16.20.70.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also wanted to mention that while I appreciate Councilwoman McNutt's comments regarding notice, we've had a couple of study sessions on this and publicity, and I think people are aware that it's out there, so I'm comfortable with the timing. My second motion would be to waive or included in my final motion would be to waive the reading of the ordinance, and then I would move that we take an action to amend the ordinance that we have in front of us, which is 16.20.60, which regulates the use and operations of leaf blowers, and direct the clerk to publish a summary of no more than 5 days prior to adoption. I would like to specifically include in my motion that we add language to 16.20.060B with respect to the distance, as was indicated by Mr. Siemens, and whether that include both industry standard or a distance of 50 feet. I'm not sure what's appropriate. Mr. Schultz, if you want to advise me with respect to that.
I think after the 65 decibels, just say measured 50 feet from the source would be fine.
All right, so that would be included in my motion. And I would also move to strike, as part of my motion, the language, if you look at your desk item, in 16.20.0, I guess it's 0.70, paragraph C regarding penalties, simply end that paragraph, end that section after $500, period, and strike the or a misdemeanor language. And that's my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Councilmember McNutt?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm not going to support the motions for reasons that I talked about in the study session and I alluded to tonight. It has nothing to do with my love of the noise of leaf blowers. I cannot stand the noise, except of course when they're doing my yard, and then I manage to put up with it, for a few minutes. But I really feel that there is not enough public awareness or education about this. I think the putting it into effect is going to be very fast. I think for those who are aware, there's an expectation that you're never going to hear a leaf blower again on Broadway, and that's not going to be the case. They're just going to be electric at 65 decibels. Electric blowers will still stir up particulate matter, so I don't think we're solving the bigger issue of the environmental impact. And I think it's the kind of law, as I said in the study session, that we put into effect, and it's not going to be enforceable because by the time it's reported and someone shows up, they're going to be gone. And I just think it makes everybody feel good about doing something for the environment, but I don't think it's going to have the results. And so for those reasons, I won't be supporting the motion.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
Point of clarification for the maker of the motion. You said in 162070, Section C, to conclude the language at $500, but $500 isn't in there, it's $250.
It's actually in our desk item on page 3.
So you're not referencing back to the language in the
No, I was using the
report.
desk item that we got, which has a modified Section C.
All right. That's the first item. The second item is in reference to Councilwoman McNutt's comments. This is a step in the right direction. This is not perfect. And I think that's really the key. We're not going to eliminate all particulates. We're not going to be able to eliminate all noise, but we're going to move in a certain direction that indicates that this is what we want as a community. I use the example reusable bags that we have accommodated within our community. It's such common practice now. Every store you go into, they'll say, you want to buy a bag for a dime? Most people pull something out of their purse or out of their back pocket and say, no, I brought my own. And it's a matter of education, but education isn't just by announcement. I think it's by practice over a period of time. So with that, I am comfortable. I know there's going to be some pushback. I know there's going to be some difficulty in enforcement, but I think it's not necessarily enforcement, it's education that we're looking at for, and education is going to be how strongly we make the statement to our community. So that's why I'm comfortable supporting the motion with the language amendments that were made.
Any other comments? Mr. Attorney.
Just a quick comment. You certainly can take out the language with regards to the misdemeanor language, but I do want to caution you that, as I said, it belongs to the whole chapter that did not have enforcement, and I believe that that misdemeanor has been used for in party house situations with noise problems, that misdemeanors have been cited for that type. And so by taking out the misdemeanor language for the whole chapter, you will limit infractions that I believe police has used in the past for the noise violations. Unless they're using a different chapter that I'm not aware of, I believe they're using that chapter.
Vice Mayor.
Just to respond to that, I appreciate that. However, if it was a party house or what, it could be disturbing the peace. It could be drunk in public. It could be littering. It could be lots of things. So I'm not worried that we're eliminating enforcement options by taking that out.
Brzezinski.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment too, is that we cite people for misdemeanor all the time, depending on what the offense is. So I'm more comfortable with it gone from this language, but still enforceable depending on the circumstance that law enforcement finds itself in.
Further discussion? I'll weigh in on this one. I will be supporting the motion. I do believe this is a step in the right direction. As Councilmember Brzezinski said, it's not a perfect solution. I believe in the faith of the people to do the right thing, just as there's laws in place where you're not supposed to speak on your cell phone when you drive. Most people will obey that most of the time, but on occasion there will be those who disobey, and that is a personal choice they make, and they might get away with it once in a while. They may not get away with it all the time. I think leaf blowers have been one of those inventions like a plastic bag. As you move forward in time, you realize that you made a mistake, perhaps inventing it. So putting these measures in place, I think, is very forward-looking, especially for the health and the quality of life of the residents of Los Gatos, and that is primarily why I am supporting it. I live in a large parcel up in the hillsides. I know it will be difficult to operate strictly on electricity. I do it. I roll out that cord and the cord unplugs, and it's sometimes a pain in the neck, but it's something I'm willing to do, and I hope that others are willing to join us if this passes, which I think it will this evening. So I will call the question. Do we have any other comments from anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
No.
Oh, opposed? 1. Passes 4-1. Councilmember McNutt dissenting. And that is our last item. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.